Hey guys, Seth Fuller, your favorite lawyer here, coming up with sort of a follow-up video. Now this video will stand on its own, I think, but it is a follow-up to the previous Defund the Police video I just did. And that is going to be in the link, or you can just, that link is going to be in the description, or you can just look back at my other videos. So I critiqued the Defund the Police video, and I don't think it's fair to do so without presenting my own. Now again, I'm no expert. I am a criminal defense lawyer. Do see a lot of injustices in the system. I'm also work within the system. I was a district attorney at one point. I work with I associate with a lot of police officers and law enforcement, including chiefs of police and so forth. And so I'm not saying my perspective is any better than anybody else's, and I'm not saying my solution is any better than anybody else's. I just would like to present it as maybe a possible option. So if we're not going to completely defund the police, then what are we going to do? What are some common solutions that will help? Well, I will tell you right now, I'm not going to specifically cover the 8 can't wait. I think that those are pretty good measures, though I think that the police departments adopting them will have trouble, and the public will have trouble seeing some actual practical value to some of those. Some of them are pretty cut and dried, but some of them are not. And also I think some of them are problematic. But I'm instead today going to present what I think is a possible solution. I'm going to start with no solution works perfectly. The police departments we have right now have undergone a lot of evolution, a lot of tearing down, rebuilding, rethinking, looking at their policies, redoing them. They've come a long way. And we're still having these problems. Now, maybe there's going to be at some point where we can't solve any more problems, that the problems resulting are just human beings being the fallible human beings that they are. However, I think if we ever stop looking, then we will have problems, A. And B, I think that we're not to that point yet, and that we could really look at the fundamentals of what's going on, and we can take a look back at the problems we're having, and we can find solutions that still will work without creating more problems than they solve. So there's no order to what I'm going to be giving. I'm just going to be laying out some of the things that I think they should do. Some of these are going to match some of the defund the police platforms that are presented. Okay, so some of them are going to match. But some of them are specifically going to address the problems I see with those platforms. So let's start with number 1. And this is going to be something that I think everyone could do immediately. I think it's something that will be effective. I don't think it will drastically change things, but I think it will help with the problem. And that is no more no-knock warrants. No-knock warrants, if you don't know, is when basically they're afraid someone's going to destroy drugs or run and they can't catch them, or barricade themselves, make it more difficult for them to apprehend. So the police just get the warrant, come in, knock down the door, and arrest the people before they even know what's happening. It sounds good. It does work sometimes, don't get me wrong, but also it is problematic. Most notably, we had 2 citizens killed on a bogus no-knock warrant. I say bogus because it turns out that the informant was wrong. They often use confidential informants for these things, and the judge has a lot of trust when he signs these warrants, and that tends to not get too crazy when you're knocking on the door and you find out it's the wrong person and the confidential informant was wrong. However, when you bust down citizens' doors, those citizens are allowed to own guns and defend themselves, and often bad things happen, as happened in Houston. There are some charges for the officers. There was many firings. Most notably recently was Breonna Taylor, who was murdered in her home by police serving a no-knock warrant. Her boyfriend was arrested and then later released, and the charges were dropped because he was defending himself against those police who were barging into their home. And so this is something, no more no knock warrants, that I think will address a lot. I really don't think that no knock warrants do a whole lot. Okay, I think that it's mostly for drugs, so people won't get rid of drugs, and just the benefit of it, of getting those drugs, is not worth the obvious downside of it, of innocent people dying. Could we fix them? Maybe we can get judges to be more critical, but again, it just seems to me an easy solution. No more no knock warrants. And this is something you could do in your city. Municipalities, city councils have can tell their police departments not to do no knock warrants. Okay, so this is not something you have to bring to the courts. It's not even something you have to vote somebody in to do. Municipalities can do this right now, and several have. And more importantly, municipalities are doing it, and it's a substitution for just defunding the police. So if they're considering defunding police, certainly this is something they could do right away. So that's first. No more no knock warrants. That would be my first thing. Now we're going to go from the easiest to probably the most difficult. And that's two-tiered policing system. Now, this is my direct, by the way, I've been advocating this for many, many years, but it is also an answer to my criticisms of the Defund the Police movement. Basically, there should be a team of meter maids. Now, they're not real meter maids. We're going to call them something real nice, give them a nice title like community police. But these policemen are not going to carry a weapon, even though they will have to be T-close certified to carry a weapon. The only weapon they will be able to carry is their own personal weapon. Now, what this means is that they will still have the ability to defend themselves, as any citizen should. All of you should have the ability to defend yourselves. However, they will be personally liable for the use of that firearm. They will have to meet the same qualifications as citizens have, and they will get no benefit of the doubt for having the T-close certification or anything like that. And in fact, I think we can write it into our instructions that the jury will, in a case where they are being prosecuted for using such force, will be instructed to not consider their role as a police officer. So basically, they will be walking around without guns unless they have a concealed carry. They will not be allowed to open carry, anything like that. So it'll be their choice to have a gun, but it will be on them personally whether to use it or not, just like any other citizen. These will be much like the social workers that they say should address things. And in fact, I have no problem with them being social workers. But at least they know they are first responders, and they're going to be answering calls. Now, they are not allowed to answer any calls involving firearms or any violent calls. However, if it's a non-violent offense, if it's a traffic offense, if it's anything like that, this interns, so basically they're interns, that they've passed their T-close, but they haven't achieved all the necessary education or certifications to become a full-fledged police officer. Now, they will go around engaging the community and doing what police should be doing, that they're too busy to do, which is engaging in the community, engaging in the broken windows type stuff, where instead of they're not out there to arrest people. And in fact, they don't have any arrest function. They will all have body cameras. Which brings me to my third point, 100% body cameras. All police have body cameras, including these citizen police, we'll call them. These police officers will have body cameras. They'll be able to record people, so therefore those people can still be prosecuted for the crimes that they commit. However, these police will not be arrested. They will use body cameras. They will be able to use drones. Some of them will have drones in the car. They'll be provided a car that is bulletproof and offers protection in case things get hairy. They will not be expected to apprehend anyone, but they can detain someone non-forcibly, voluntarily, until the regular police arrive. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, then everybody's going to run. No, because running from these police will still constitute resisting arrest and detainment, which is a misdemeanor in most places. So they will say you are now detained, and they wait for backup. And if you leave, then you will be committing a further crime, and therefore you will be subject to punishment. This will create both incentive for people not to leave, and will de-incentivize the police to become hands-on and become violent. That things that lead to more of this stuff. 100% body cams and the two-tiered policing will work together. They will be able to have drones so they can follow someone who does run with the drone. Again, nothing violent. They can't pursue. They just are there to police, to help people, to take reports, to help people who are in need, to observe, to be a a positive presence in the community, which is what we need from law enforcement. Also, they will be randomly inspected. Their body cameras, their interactions will be randomly inspected by supervisors, and they will be evaluated for their temperament, for their reaction to stuff, and at the same time, they can be pursuing their education and their certification to become a real police officer. So the kind of interns that are working, and a good way to see whether they fit the qualifications we want for our police officers. And so this will be a two-tier program. Again, much like meter maids. They will be able to protect themselves with their own personal firearms that will have to be concealed if they get into a bad situation with someone who just wants to hurt a police officer. But then they will be held to the same standard that any citizen would have in self-defense. They will have the added benefit of having a body camera that will record what they did, and that can exonerate them if they do right and punish them if they do wrong. That brings me to my next point. My next suggestion for how to defund the police, or really just revamp the police, which is make police heroes again. Now, if you haven't seen my video about this, I'm very adamant about this. The current overwhelming attitude of police officers, of law enforcement, is I need to go home at the end of the day. I need to go home. I'm not going to risk myself over some scumbag. I'm not going to go out of my way to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. The number one goal is to go home at the end of the day, and we don't need that. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are going to get really angry at me saying this. I want all police officers to go home at the end of the day, but that's not what I want from a police officer. That is not the attitude that I want a police officer to have. Police officers are heroes. I know police officers got into the job to be heroes, and it's an almost impossible job, and it's a job that we used to have no doubt about. Your job was to risk your own health and bodily harm in order to serve and protect your community, and we need to get back to doing that again. Now, here's how I think we achieve that. We pay our officers more. Now, again, if you think about the two-tiered system, obviously the cops on the lower tier are going to be paid less initially in order to working themselves up to this higher tier. Now, why are we paying officers more in order to scold the officers who are doing badly so far? I'm just telling you, this is how things work. If you think that by paying police less, they're going to treat citizens better, that we can expect more from them than we would your average person on the street, you are ridiculous. You are so off base, it's not funny. If we want our police to be heroes, to not think first about going home, but instead think first about being heroes and protecting and serving their community, then we have to pay them more. We have to recognize for that. Not only that, By paying them more, we can then raise the standard for police officers, which is what we really want. This is kind of what Defund the Police is actually trying to do, raise the standards. Less bad police, less racist police, less bad police. And the way we do that is by raising the standards, requiring more education, requiring more certification. And this goes back to the social workers. No social worker wants to answer 911 calls, but we can expect police candidates to have gone through social worker education, to have a social worker degree, but the only way we could do that is to raise the pay so that it is competitive with someone with that type of degree and that type of education would do. And it has to be more than competitive, because we're not just asking them to do a job that requires that education. We're asking them to do a lot of jobs. And more importantly, we're asking them to be heroes, to risk their life every day for protecting and serving the citizens. If you're asking somebody to do that, if you're asking, look, police officers have to see dead babies. Now, other people do too, doctors and all that. But that's a terrible thing to see. They have to see people who've committed suicide. They have to worry about getting shot themselves. They have to see children being abused. They see the worst of the worst of the worst, and maybe it only happens one day out of the year that they see something that horrible. But just the fact that we are asking them to see that and then the next day go back into work is crazy at the pay that we are paying them now. Some police are paid enough to do that, but most of them are not. And most of them, one doesn't have to do with the other. The good police aren't necessarily getting paid more than the bad police because they're working their way up into that pay. But if we have that pay at the beginning, where there's an actual threshold that they have to have that education, they have to have the experience, and we've already vetted them through the citizen police, the two-tiered system, then we can both pay them more and we can filter out the bad police and filter out the ones who aren't going to be heroes and filter out the ones who are going to hurt anybody, people of color, anything like that. We can filter out the racists. Not only that, but when we pay them more and expect more, one of those expectations can be you have to rat out your police officers. Now, in most suggestions, that is a requirement that police have to report. I agree with that, but here's what you have to understand. They also have to rely on those same officers the next day to show up to a call where their life is in danger. It's a fraternity. They have to rely on each other. However, if you have that high standard, if you have more educated people, if you are there being paid and they value their job, then they absolutely will report people, because it's going to be more. If it's an $80,000 job and they can get an $80,000 job somewhere else after working 15 years there, then they're just going to do that. However, if it's a $120,000 job, they had to go through lots of education, and leaving there would mean not being able to easily get a job somewhere else, then they will stop doing it. And I want to say additionally, police are scared right now. And for good reason. Finally, they should be. Police are already scared just from this. They see police officers getting prosecuted. They see police officers being held responsible. Some of them think those police officers shouldn't be prosecuted or held responsible. And most of us disagree with that. But what they're really thinking about is themselves later and not wanting to be unjustly prosecuted, not wanting to go to jail over just doing their job. Well, we don't have to worry about that because we have a pretty good justice system that does give them a lot of leeway. What they're facing right now, honestly, is just the things that I have to face, that citizens have to face already, that less than what black people have to face, which is if I go outside and fight someone, even if we are both wanting to fight, or even if they're doing something like I see them try to break into my car, if I go outside and fight them and I punch them and they fall on the ground and they bust the back of their head open and they're in a coma or they die, I am concerned. That is worried. If I see them break into my car, I grab them, I hold them down for the police, and I put my knee on them and that person dies, I am worried sick. I certainly don't have my hands in my pockets while I do it. I certainly am not just, no big deal, which is how absolutely police acted before this. And I'm telling you right now that just right now, with just what has already happened, that attitude is changing. No uncertain terms. Is it changing enough? I don't know. I think it will. I think what we're already doing will change. However, in order to keep that up, in order for us to systematize that attitude, we have to pay them more. And then once we pay them more, we can make them responsible and give them an incentive to stop those other officers from doing bad things, to report those other bad officers. Okay, so now we have two-tiered system. One can't even apprehend people, and the police that are educated and paid more, and they feel responsible, and they feel appreciated. So now we need to address the ones that are still the good cops that are still left over, and protect them from themselves. And that's where we go. Stop hands-on for non-violent crimes. What do I mean by that? Hands-on means physicality, physically arresting people. People are really going to dislike this one, but here's the good thing about defund the police movement. It makes the stuff that I'm putting forth, that I've been putting forth as a solution for years, it makes it seem so tame and so doable, because some of those defund the police things are absolutely ridiculous. Well, this one I really do believe is accomplishable and is doable. So we have a problem with, there was a video recently where like a guy gets pulled over and he drives home instead of pulling over in his car. He drove the speed limit, but he gets home and he gets out and his grandmother comes out and she faints over him. But all this was over traffic. So much, George Floyd was over a $20 counterfeit bill that I'm not even sure if we know he even had, but just an accusation of that. These are all non-violent crimes. So look, when someone gets violent, when someone is punching someone, when someone is robbing someone, when someone is forcefully breaking windows and taking stuff, all that could be considered violent crimes. Even for sure DWIs, right? You're driving a giant weapon down the street of you no control over. Even in my opinion, to some degree, fleeing in a car at high speeds. However, when you're shoplifting, when you have a traffic warrant, when you are accused of a $20 bill, going hands-on for these crimes is getting us bad result. And studies show that black people are more likely to have these interactions that then do go hands-on, and therefore we are left with these whether it's intentionally racist or not, we are left with these racial results, these racist results of these hands-on, the way the police now. So basically, if it's a non-violent crime, again, all police officers now have body cameras, so they can record who you are, they can try and identify you, they can do whatever they can to identify you for your petty theft, for your criminal trespass, for your traffic tickets, for your possession of drugs is going to be the big one. And let's talk about Texas. There are many states, Texas included, that is marijuana is still legal. And let's start with that. If you have marijuana in your car and that's all that it is, the police cannot go hands-on with you, even to arrest you. They can ask you to turn around, put your hands behind your back, and they put handcuffs on you in order to transport you. However, I don't even believe that they should be able to do that. So I'm going to go one step further. I say no arrest for nonviolent crimes. So, marijuana possession, I give you a summons for court and let you go. Possession of cocaine, possession of crack, even distribution, I give you a piece of paper that says that you can come back at a later date. Possession of a firearm, if you're not allowed to carry a firearm, possession of a firearm by a felon or by someone unlawfully carrying a firearm is a violent crime. So you could be arrested for that, but you can't be arrested for forgery, okay? for anything like that. You can be identified. And again, if you decide, so, because this is what you're going to say, they're just going to leave. Everyone's going to leave. You can't arrest, and nobody's going to show up to court. Okay. If you walk away and don't even take the ticket or take the summons or identify yourself, the police officer can't even identify you, even though he knows you committed a crime. Let's say it's marijuana. He pulled you over for a good speeding ticket. He smells marijuana. That's what they always do. They always smell marijuana. They get the marijuana. Well, guess what? They give you a summons. Many places are already doing this. Even the places that are illegal, they can already give you a summons. But let's just say they don't. They would normally arrest you. Now they can only give you a summons. This is going to incredibly reduce the amount of these altercations that come from nonviolent crimes that lead to deaths. But if you don't cooperate, if you don't identify yourself, and if you leave the scene without having identified yourself or without getting the summons, that is going to be a fleeing and eluding on by vehicle or on foot. You're going to get another charge. Now, nobody wants another charge. And I get it. The bad guys are going to just walk away. But again, if you don't have any reason, if you don't see a gun, if you don't see someone being violent, then you don't have any reason to arrest them. You just issue them a summons, or if they leave without being identified, you have them on body camera. Maybe you stop them in the car, whatever it needs to be, you follow them, whatever you need to do to identify them. And then once you've identified them, they're free to go, and they'll catch a new charge, which is refusal to identify and fleeing a police officer or resisting detention and arrest. There's a number of already on the books crimes that you could be arrested for. And even if you leave, we can hold you responsible for it. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, then they'll just keep leaving every time. They'll just get warrants and you can't arrest someone for a nonviolent warrant. No. We can easily install a policy that if you have two active nonviolent warrants out, meaning two separate times, I want to be specific about this, two separate times that you have fled from police in order to not get arrested, whether it's for a warrant or a nonviolent offense, at that point, it's in the realm of violent offense, meaning you can go hands-on. You can arrest them, okay? They've had two previous chances, and then they can be arrested. Now, so again, there's no perfect solution. Is this solution going to still lead to these bad interactions? Could George Floyd have had two previous, under my realm, in this fantastical realm, two previous nonviolent crimes, and he was running for the third time, and it goes, yes, absolutely. However, this will eliminate a huge percentage of the population who are not violent, who are just smoking weed or doing some coke or whatever it is, and it's not hurting anybody, and it's not putting children in danger, it's not putting the public in danger, and those people can be dealt with in a nonviolent way. And maybe someone will forget and a warrant will be issued. They will be arrested for that warrant if they choose to. If they run, now they have another charge, and when they finally are arrested after they get so many of these, then they will have a lot of charges and they will face the consequences. And most people, only the worst criminally minded people will end up in that situation, just honestly. That's going, again, you're going to have a filter here. That's what we have, a filter. And you're going to have less and less of these crazy interactions between police. And police are going to care less and less. And let me give you an example of this. Nearly every police department has a ton of major police departments have where if someone flees in a vehicle at high speeds, this puts the public more in danger considering what the crime is. And if you don't have a violent felony crime that you think that person committed, or whoever is in that car, if you've identified them committed, then they call off the search, but they then still pursue the person. If you've identified them, they go and arrest them somewhere else. If you and again, after you get two of those, then we can have it. And so we already have a policy very much like this for fleeing, when we said it's not worth the danger to the public. Well, I think we've reached a point where we've decided that arrests for nonviolent crimes is not worth the danger to the public. And I know it seems like a huge leap to say this, but I really do believe it will work. And I believe it's way less extreme than the defund the police policies in general. So now we have educated hero policemen, the interns that are taking care of all the little nonviolent stuff, the tickets, the trying to pick up these people who ran previously and meeting with them and going, hey man, you got to cut an extra charge. If you come now, maybe we'll talk about reducing that charge. Maybe we'll talk, just come on, all that stuff. And they can call the police officer and get the police out. So we got this two-tiered policing system. They're not doing no knock warrants. And we have this system where the public is interacting with people who aren't violent. They're not seeing escalations of nonviolent crimes. So everything's on tape. So everything's on body camera. And so we'll have this system that will be a supportive system. Not only that, but the police who are making a lot of money, the armed police, will be social workers. They'll have respect. They'll know, they'll have been educated in the thing that Defund the Police want them to be educated in. They'll be essentially all mental health police, mental health deputies. And so again, you'll have this complete revamping, while not saying that social workers should answer 911 calls, while not saying that violent criminals, the citizens won't be protected against violent criminals. I really do think that this will go a long way. Now I'm going to discuss some other things that I'm just going to be honest with you from here on out are not necessarily as important to me, but are things that I do believe will work. The biggest one is going to be the end to qualified immunity. Now, why don't I care so much about this? This seems to be the darling of the police reform movement. Qualified immunity is basically that as long as you're working within the realm of what a normal police officer would do, that you can't be personally sued for that, okay? And in fact, the department can't be sued for it because you were just acting in the normal part of your duty. Now, this is not an overall blanket protection that some are suggesting it is. Police are being sued for stepping beyond what they do, and they're being successfully sued, and people are paying lots of money. George Floyd's family, even besides the millions of dollars of support they've gotten from the community, which is awesome, will also win a lawsuit. Okay, and it's a lower burden than prosecuting the police officer. This is something that's in civil court. So these departments are paying out. The police officers generally don't have to pay out because they were employees, and so there's also to make them personally liable. But I think ending qualified immunity could send at least a message to police that they cannot do this, and it will put a fear in the departments and make sure that the departments will comply with all the other steps. And so I think it's a good idea, but I don't think it's necessarily going to change things, because I think all you're going to see is a few more. If we end qualified immunity, we're going to see more BS lawsuits that the cities have to deal with, and they're going to cost more taxpayers money. And if it's within the realm of what the police officer is supposed to do, then generally the juries are going to leave them with nothing. So I think it just clogs the court systems, and I think we can, if we are reasonable about qualified immunity, then and if we take out the extremes, the outliers, that you'll see, I believe qualified immunity is a decent thing that protects the citizens from blowing their police budgets on wrongful lawsuits, whereas it still gives the citizens who are wronged by police a chance to show that this police officer went way beyond what is allowed by their policies and the Constitution. And so I'm going to put that forward as something that is a good thing, but I'm not as bullish on it as some of the other people who are big fans of it. This next one is I think a good idea. It's not my idea though, so I'm just gonna say that I think it's a good idea and we should do it. But all police misconduct is handled out of House. Now, some people want the Citizens Oversight Committee. I don't think a Citizens Oversight Committee is necessary, though maybe not a bad idea. Again, just I'm talking about what I think would really change things. In cities with public defender's office, I think that they should handle it. Any accusations, and they should be able to keep the accusations anonymous. And I think they should be able to have some say in almost any accusations of police misconduct, and especially ones that have reached the level of lawsuits or criminal charges, or national news. I think that they should pretty much, somebody out of house, whether it's public defender's office or maybe even a special counsel of some defense attorneys, could be a revolving will of private defense attorneys. But anyways, that are going to handle all the police misconduct, and therefore the police aren't policing themselves. Again, I think this is not necessarily my idea, but I do think it is a pretty good idea, and I think this will be more important the less of these other solutions that you see. Okay, so this last one is going to be way important as it stands now. But if you do these things that I'm suggesting, if you do some sort of revamp, then this becomes, and qualified immunity, I think, become less important. So I don't want to say it's not important. I don't want to say I don't believe in it. I think it's a great idea, but I also think that it will be less important than revamping the police department. And I just think that if you don't revamp the police department, you're just giving those public defenders, those citizen oversight committees, a really, really difficult job, an impossible job. They won't agree on things, and they'll still have to deal with a lot of this. I think we take that out by revamping the entire way we police, as I said before. But if we're not going to do that, let's go ahead and move the police misconduct calls out of house, away from the police's hands, away from the DA who work with the police closelly's hands, and with some outside entities. Now, that's the basic overview of what I would suggest. It's not the 8 can't wait. It's not the defund the police. Of course, the funding is going to be moved. And in fact, I want to talk about that, which is a lot of people are saying Camden, New Jersey is like, look, they defunded the police. They disbanded police. No, they didn't. They broke the unions, which, by the way, is going to be my very last point. Places where unions are strong are having a real problem with this, and I think that it's a very acceptable thing to break up the unions. Camden did this by firing everybody and then rehiring them so that the unions couldn't get angry and have any say. But in the meantime, they had the state officers come in who weren't union. And so again, if there is a very strong union that is preventing these changes, then you have to break that union in order to get these changes. Breaking the union in of itself without these changes, again, like the other two, are not going to do anything. But we got to break the strong police unions. I have no problem with police unions of themselves, but we have seen that in places they are preventing the change that is needed, and in some places they are literally as racist as can be and openly like gangsters and racist. And so those types of unions have to be broken, and that can be done by defunding the police, which is the only legitimate defund the police that I think you could do. And you don't defund the police. In fact, Camden, New Jersey ended up paying more. Okay, here's the thing. All of these cost money. There is no free solution here. All of these cost money. And again, I'm a libertarian. I don't necessarily want my taxes to be raised. I think we can shuffle around the money for sure, but all of these things cost money. If you want a solution, then it's going to cost money. But if we're taking the pay from the kind of crappy police who are just there to fill boots on the ground, then we can pay more for the hero police officers, and we can still have enough officers with that same pool of money to do what we need to do to protect the public, to instill confidence back in our communities that police are protecting them and are not there to hurt them. I hope you enjoyed the video. I mean, this should generate lots of comments, but again, my videos are hit and miss. One's 10,000 plus, one's like 100 that I thought was going to do great. But if you have any comments, put them down below. Again, if you're like, hey, this is crazy, or hey, this is good, share it, because I would love for more people to come and comment. Again, I learn from these things. When you post comments, I can look at these things. Maybe there's something I'm not thinking. Maybe you're a law enforcement officer and you said, look, there's a big mistake. Just like I see a mistake in the Defund the Police movement that I talked about in the other video. Maybe you see a grave mistake that I haven't thought about. I've thought about these a lot. I've been thinking about them for years. I've been running them across police departments. A lot of them disagree with what I have, which probably says that I'm on the right path. But a lot of people are like, hey, that's a good idea. Hey, that's an interesting idea. And more importantly, I think it at least is a change, because we're obsessed with changing. We have to do something. This is something that I've thought about a lot, that I was working from the inside with. I'd love to hear your comments, your criticisms, whatever. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for your support. I hope you have a good one. See you later.